Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're taking a look at a Sega CD game, which I have not done in a while, and that happens to be Devastator. And before anyone asks, no, this has nothing to do with the Transformer Devastator, you know, the one that's like lime green and purple. Although him getting his own game would be pretty cool, not gonna lie, but instead, this is a game based after a very obscure anime called D1 Devastator, which I never heard of until discovering about this game, and it's one of those animes that's still stuck on VHS. So the game was developed and published by Wolf Team and was released in 1993, and it happens to be, well, an action platformer with mecha stuff. So for now, let's get moving on to the game's story, and this will not take long at all because, you know, this game is Japan only and has not been fan translated yet. So I don't fully know what's going on, but from what I've looked up, apparently the cutscenes in this game were directly taken from the OVA themselves. So if you happen to see this anime, then chances are then you'll know exactly what's going on within this game. But from the bit of information that I looked up, apparently your character's name is Ryo, and he works for a certain company, and while going on a mech ride, he ends up getting transported to another dimension. And then of course some of the creatures in that dimension end up crossing over to our world or something. Yeah, it's some crazy shit like that. So yeah, let's get moving on to the more important things, like the gameplay. So just like every action platformer ever made, you run around, you attack things, and when you attack in this game, you actually have two attacks with one button. So when you attack, you use both a hook chain and a projectile. So the hook chain will always be the same, while the projectile can actually be upgraded, and if you pick up different power-ups, it will change different styles of shooting. And those different styles of shots are laser, spread shot, and then arching bomb. And you can actually shoot in multiple directions, yes, even up and down. And whenever you see a power-up that you can pick up, if you hit it a couple times, then it will actually change to whichever one you want. And one of those other ones can actually be more health, but only heals up one block of energy by one. So meaning that you don't die in one hit in this game, which is always nice. And of course, whenever you go through the level, you fight a boss at the end, and then after that you move on to the next level. But aside from actually having some side-scrolling platforming levels, there's also some shoot-'em-up segments too. And the shoot-'em-up segments, well, they play very similar to the platforming ones, but obviously you don't jump, you just move around all over the place. But another nice feature about this is that you can actually switch between the direction that you're facing with the jump button. So I can't completely call it an action platformer when there are shoot-'em-up stages, but there are more action platforming stages than there are shoot-'em-up ones. So that sums up everything you need to know about the gameplay on this one. In many ways, it kinda reminds me of the Turrican series, but only if it was made by Wolf Team. So now, let's get moving on to the game's controls, and I would have to say that the game's controls in this game are actually pretty good for what they are. So walking around feels pretty good, it doesn't feel too slow, and also the jumping feels good, the attacking is also really good and spot on. There doesn't seem to be any like weird hit detection, there doesn't seem to be any slowdown, so anything like that. But one minor thing that I do have a problem with though, is that if you duck and then jump, you do a sort of dash move, but I find the dash move in this game, it feels really stiff. At least it feels a lot more stiffer compared to like everything else. Of course, you don't need to use it that much, but there are some times where I accidentally use it, and then like I end up getting like hurt by it. And I mean I get hurt by it because I accidentally run into like an enemy or a projectile or something. And maybe like one other thing I guess I could say is that I do wish this game had like some sort of like bomb feature that was used with like limited uses, because this game doesn't have that. But other than that, I do think that the controls in this game are pretty good. So now, as for the game's graphics, I think the graphics in this one are pretty nice. So, you got some pretty cool backgrounds, you got some pretty cool enemy designs, I also love the sprite work for the main character, and the game just has a lot of nice bright colors going on. And the game's cutscenes do look pretty good. Well, like I said, apparently they were taken from the anime itself, so it's really just like a more like lower rendered version of it, and I think it looks fine for what it is. I mean, I think it looks a lot more clear than what it did for the Terminator game. But I will say, I am kind of intrigued on wanting to check out the anime now, for that I do love the art style in it. But yeah, I would say that overall, this is a pretty good looking Sega CD game, though I wouldn't say it's like the best looking Sega CD game that I've seen, but a pretty nice looking one nonetheless. And now, as for the game's music, the music in this game is pretty great, but I guess this comes as no surprise because I really do love a lot of the music from Wolf Team games, since they do have three great composers, being Motoi Sakuraba, Ryota Fuyuya, and Shinji Tamura. And also no surprise from a Sega CD game is that the audio sounds really clear and just sounds really good. So the game has a lot of hard rocking guitars and some high energy synthesizers, and some songs have some like dark sci-fi type sounds to them that I really dig a whole lot. The closest thing I can compare this game's OST to is that it kinda reminds me of the music from MD Geist, which is pretty badass. So yeah, definitely can recommend the music on this one, it's really good. So now, if you ever wanted to buy yourself a copy of this game, as of right now that I'm looking at this, the lowest I've seen it for was $90. Well, shit. I mean, I guess I'm not too surprised, but at the same time, I kind of expected this one to be a lot more, to be honest. Because I'm sure, as you know, if you want to get any of the good shit on Sega CD, it's always at least going to be like $100 plus. And if you're looking at Kyo's Flying Squadron or Snatcher, then it's going to be $1,000 plus. So now, as my overall thoughts on Devastator is that I find this game to be enjoyably solid. Yeah, I enjoyed my time with this one. I find that the gameplay was actually pretty fun. Sure, maybe the dash move could have been a little bit better, and I wish there was a special attack with limited uses feature as well, but I still thought it played pretty well, and of course, I do like the level design for what it is. I think the shoot 'em up sections are pretty good, and there's also some really good amount of checkpoints in this game. And I didn't find the game to be extremely difficult, which is nice. Now sure, there were some parts in the game that did get a little bit difficult and hard, but it's not like stupidly impossible. Like, for me personally, I found that the hardest stage in the game was Stage 7, which is a shoot-'em-up stage where you pretty much have to do a boss rush, and the main reason why this level is hard is because there's no checkpoints for whatever reason. Yeah, every other level before that has a fair amount of checkpoints, but this level does not, so meaning if you die at one of the bosses, then you have to, like, beat, like, the other bosses that you beat before all over again. So I did found that to be pretty annoying though, but other than that, I mean, everything else is pretty good, and also I find they really could have made this a hell lot worse. They could have made it so that, like, if you died at this part, then you have to, like, redo Stage 6, or fuck you, go back all the way to Stage 1. So yeah, despite how annoying Stage 7 can be with that, it's definitely not the worst thing they could have done, and I find that everything else about the game was very fair. So even if you're not the best at these style of games, which I'll be honest, I'm not the best at them either, but if this does look interesting to you, then I would recommend trying it. I do think it is a pretty enjoyable game that isn't brutally hard, but will still give you a decent challenge for it. So yeah, surprisingly, a really obscure anime that I never even heard of before got a game made out of it, and the game was actually good. Now that's something you don't see happen very often for how much, like, great animes happen to get games that are utter shit. And now it makes me wish that this type of stuff happened more often, where we get more obscure animes getting turned into games that are at least pretty good or enjoyable. So yep, good old Wolf Team does it again, and I like it. So with that said, thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.